Hey, Susan, sorry I'm late. I
Hi,
had
good
problems
afternoon.
with the computer, so.
No problem. I'll be doing sound checks shortly. Jason, do you want to start them?
Uh, sure, but I'm still, I got the
You're,
WebEx going, but I'm booting up everything else because I was shut down.
gotcha,
Sorry.
gotcha.
So I'm
Okay,
playing catch up. Sorry.
no worries, no worries. I'll do some quick sound checks.
And then I
Sudie,
can
I
take over.
see
Yep.
that you're on the call. Do you want to unmute yourself and
Yep. Hi, good afternoon.
hello? Okay, thank you. You can turn your audio and video off. Jack Acom, if you want to unmute and turn your camera on, we'll do a quick sound check.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Thank you very much. You can now remute yourself. Madison Bose.
Hello.
I hear you. You're very quiet.
Can you hear me better? Do I have to talk louder?
That's better. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I see Ma Lung.
It's Malungu, Leticia.
MALUNGLX.
That's me.
And who is that?
It's Leticia.
Oh, hi, Leticia.
Hi,
Thank
can
you
you hear
very
me good?
much. I see
Okay.
you and I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. You can now remute. Mehdi?
Hi, can you hear and see me?
I can hear and see you. Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
Okay. Is it Amber or?
Yes, hello.
Hello, I hear you and I see you. Thank you very much. And Haley.
Hello.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Maxwell.
Hello. Checking.
Check you. I hear you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And Will.
Oh, you hear me? All good?
I can hear you and I can see you. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
No worries.
Okay, so I think we have all of our interns on. Actually, Donovan, let's do a quick sound check. You want to unmute? And
Hello.
I hear you. And for anybody that wants to change your background, if you want to mute your background or change it to a different picture, I'm looking for, if you click on audio and video at the top pull down menus, second from the bottom is change virtual background, and you should be able to select a different background. So for anybody that wants to do that, you are welcome to do so. And thank you very much for joining us early. Are we missing any of our interns, Sudie?
No, we're not.
Okay, so we have all of you here. So I'm going to run through some quick meeting guidelines before our committee members start joining. So this is our pre-session audio and video check. So we just did all of that to present to our environment committee members. So what we ask you to do is to close any programs that you don't need.
Oh,
If you
Susan, I
do
think,
have,
sorry, we're missing one. Kiana? I will
you
message
want to
her.
reach out to her and
Yeah.
see where she's at. Okay, thank you very much. So for presenting today, if you have your presentation in front of you, that's totally fine. Jason Tintis will actually be our projector and our mouse clicker. So as your section of the presentation comes up, you can go ahead and just say next slide when you're ready to advance, and he will click to the next slide. So just make sure that you're in sync with that as you're presenting, especially if you have a printed script, or if you have something on your screen, just make sure that you put something on your slides that says next slide, please, and he'll advance that. We will have 5 committee members in the session today. One of them is unable to join us. And if there are questions, they will be asked back through the chair. So it's Mr. Chair, committee members, and then you answer the question. So any question that comes up, just remember Mr. Chair and committee members, and then you can answer the question. But if you could go ahead and close any programs, applications, your email, silence your electronic devices. That will help. If you're on your computer, you want to conserve as much bandwidth as possible. So close anything that you don't need right off the bat. Maybe have this session open in your PowerPoint, and that should be sufficient, and you'll be good to go. During the session, if we do have any audio difficulties, if I hear you breaking up at all, what I might do is step in. I might interrupt you briefly and say, excuse me, could you please turn your video off because you're breaking up, and then just turn your video off. So initially you'll turn on your video and your audio. And if we need to, we may have you turn off your video if there's problems. So other than that, are there any questions from our presenters today? Okay, I'm going to start doing sound check for our committee members and our staff that are joining. Your presentations are the only thing, as I mentioned, on the agenda today. So we'll have a few housekeeping items to do at the beginning, and then we'll launch into the presentations. And Sudi will actually be doing a kickoff today of that because Jen is not able to be here. She was out ill today.
Susan, Kiana's here as well.
Oh, okay. Kiana, if you want to go ahead and turn on, did we already do your sound check? Turn on your video and unmute.
Hi, yeah, it all works on my side.
There you are. Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Thank you very much. You can go ahead and turn your video off and put your mute on. Also one thing, in these sessions, the chat function is reserved solely for our council members who have audio difficulties and would need to ask questions or in some cases vote, but we don't have any voting that has to happen today, theoretically. So the chat function is not like in other meeting feeds. So we do ask you to not have chat. Don't have any chats in this session, at least in this chat function. So other than that, I saw Councilmember Zarin had joined, but he may have dropped off. Lisa Thompson, welcome. You want to do your sound check?
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Thanks. You too.
All right, so I will be doing sound checks with the other committee members as they start joining us. And I do see Councilmember Zarin has joined us. Want to do a sound check real quick? Councilmember Zarin, if you want to unmute and turn your video on, we'll do a sound check.
Okay, well, sound check, but it's not going to sound good.
Uh-oh.
How is it?
I
How's it
hear ya.
sound?
Would you
Okay,
like
good.
to would you like to revert to chat for your voting function today? Yeah, your audio is really rough. So if you want to vote via chat for the minutes and just say here, Or you can just wave at me and I'll acknowledge it.
That probably don't need.
I
Okay.
cannot hear you at all.
Okay. All right. We'll use the chat feature. I was trying to use. Can you hear me better now that I took the video off?
Yes, much better.
Okay, we'll keep the video off, and I did improve my connection here. I got a faster connection, but it's the computer that I'm using that's just not fast enough.
Okay.
I think that's the
Okay.
issue.
Well, we will leave. It sounds
So,
good. We have a plan for you to leave your video off, and
yeah.
if you want, you can raise your hand in the participant list, and I'll acknowledge that
Okay.
if you do have a question.
My
So-
phone does better, but it is at 21% power, and
Ooh.
and I'm having a hard time getting it to connect to the charger at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that we have the best reliable connection we're going to get today, right now.
Gotcha. Sounds great. All
I'm going
right.
to go get a snack.
Okay, you do that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Lindstrom. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Outstanding. I hear you and I see you. We're doing some sound checks and I'm waiting for our other council members to join us. We do have, I don't know if you saw the message today, Susan Bento is not able to join us. So
I
I'll
saw that.
acknowledge that in the roll call. And Jen Zuchowski is out ill today, so Sudi Hashi will be doing the introduction.
Who did you say will be?
Sudi Hashi.
Great.
So her name is the second name that's on the agenda you see.
Super.
All right.
I have to reboot real quick. Sorry. This is Jason.
Are we all going to get kicked out?
No, because you're a host.
Okay.
So it'll keep running. Sorry.
Woo.
Be back.
Okay. Another good reason why we promote the recording secretary to a host.
Indeed. Cover your bases.
Cover the bases. Have a backup plan. And I don't, we should have 5 out of the 6 of you here, and we're waiting for the others to join.
Okay.
I see Jason's back. So Chair Lindstrom, just to let you know, we also do have a number of the mentors or managers of the interns that are joining us. So that's why there's so many names popping up on the screen. That's in the event that any questions that pop up that they're unable to answer, that their mentor or manager can.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Fredson. I see that you've joined. Do you want to do a sound check?
Good afternoon. I am just trying to get this working on my desktop, but I'll be on phone until then.
Fantastic. Good to see you. And Wendy Wolf, I see you have joined us. Do you want to do a sound check?
Hi.
Hello. So, Chair Lindstrom, we are at the top of the hour. The only council member we're waiting for is Councilmember Sterner. We do have a quorum. If you are ready to start, we can certainly do so.
Let's do so. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chair Peter Lindstrom, and I'll call the meeting to order with a roll call.
Fredson. And acknowledging Councilmember Sterner has not joined yet, but will probably shortly. Acknowledging Councilmember Vento will be absent today. Wolf.
Here.
Zarin.
Present.
And Lindstrom.
Present as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up on our agenda is the reading of the chair's statement, which we do each meeting of the council. And the statement is that the Metropolitan Council Chair has determined it is not practical or prudent to conduct in-person meetings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Accordingly, committee members will participate in this meeting via telephone or other electronic means, and the meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statutes Section 13D.021. We encourage anybody listening in here to submit comments via email at public.info@metc.state.mn.us. And with that, we have a really exciting agenda this afternoon. But first, we have some minutes to approve from July 27th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Wolf moves approval.
Thank you. And a second?
Pretzel second.
Excellent. Roll call, please.
Fredson.
Aye.
Acknowledging Sterner is not present. Vento is not present. Wolf.
Hi.
Zarin.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you. And Chair Lindstrom, if we also need to approve the agenda.
Absolutely. Without objection, the agenda is approved, unless anybody has anything they wish to add.
Thank you. That was just for the record.
Excellent. Thank you for stating that. Nothing on our consent agenda this afternoon, nor our non-consent business agenda. And that takes us to our information items, where we have a few presentations from summer interns. And I understand, Sudi Ashi, am I turning it over to you to kick things off?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lindstrom.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Lindstrom and committee members. Thank you all for having us this afternoon. Before our interns present, I will just give you all just a brief overview of our internship program. The Metropolitan Council Internship Program offers a wide variety of opportunities for qualifying interns, and our program is designed to educate and mentor interns by providing professional on-the-job training and development throughout the summer. In environmental services, interns are provided a robust summer calendar of projects, facility tours, informational interviews, mentorship, and networking opportunities. This is in addition to the programming that is provided by the council. And all of our programming is organized and planned by a separate team of MCS employees that are are part of our intern advisory team. Part of the Environmental Services Summer Internship Program includes having our interns create a poster or presentation showcasing the work that they were involved in over the summer. And because of our virtual environment, we have today our 9 interns, and we have 1 Urban Scholar intern who are here today to share brief presentations about their experiences and summer projects that they've been involved in. So thank you.
Next slide, please, Jason. And Chair, would you like to introduce our interns, or should we allow them to just watch their title slide come up and step up?
Let's have them introduce themselves.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mehdi. I was the water quality monitoring intern for the summer. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did this summer. First, a bit about myself. I'm going to be a 4th year environmental engineering major at Georgia Tech this coming semester. And the project that I did this summer was the Fort Snelling sample point study. Next slide, please. So essentially what the project was is that we do water quality monitoring at several points along the rivers just for general health of the rivers and to make sure that we're in compliance with the permits that the EPA gives to our wastewater treatment plants that say that we're allowed to discharge into the rivers. And one of those sites is the Minnesota River at Fort Snelling, which it came to our attention that we want to make sure that we are taking samples that are actually representative of river conditions at that point. What we've been doing in the past, ever since our old monitoring station was washed away by a flood, is using a dip pole, which is basically a bottle on a stick, to go out and take a water sample and then use that as our sample. But that may or may not be representative of river conditions. So we wanted to check that against a method that we know to be representative, which is a Van Dorn, as you can see in the picture on the right. So next slide, please. So we conducted an experiment where we took a bunch of samples with the Van Dorn and a bunch of samples with the dip pole and compared them to see if they were significantly different. And what you can pay attention to in this table is the percent difference column. You can see for each of the parameters that we measured, there was a very low percentage difference between the 2 sample groups of each type, less than 2%, which means that at least in the flow conditions that we were able to conduct the study, we can continue using the dip pole because such a small difference is not really going to affect our data. Next slide, please. So yeah, that's about what I did for the summer. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions? Did the weather cooperate most times you were out on the river, Mehdi?
Mr. Chair, committee members, yeah. It's the hard part has been the drought, really, because when the water levels get low, you get logs and stuff that were not there the last time that you sampled. So you gotta watch the logs when you're going up in the boat. But other than that, it's been pretty good. No rain at all, so that's made it a little easier.
Indeed. And I always thought the Van Dorn looked like some sort of space age technology. I don't know. I love how it has fins in it on it to keep it rather level. And I know that some of our river monitoring folks have modified it a little bit to make it work even better. So
Oh yeah,
that's great. Go ahead.
Those fins are a modification by one of the guys in our river program. Usually they don't have those, but those keep it oriented into the river so that the water flows through it evenly. It's pretty cool.
I always thought we should patent that, and make millions off of it somehow. I don't know. Very fascinating. Thank you. Any other, Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how many days did you do testing on?
Mr. Chair, committee members, we only did one. Well, the data that I showed you was only for one day. We actually just did another sampling day last week. We're trying to get a variety of flow conditions. So that first one was at the start of the summer. That was kind of a medium flow condition. The sample we took last week is going to be low flows, obviously, because we want to make sure that with different water levels and mixings, the samples are representative in a variety of conditions. And I think we're aiming for 4.
Okay, and what were the results you got last week?
We have not gotten those back from the lab yet.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your work the work that you have done this summer. Sounds like it was fascinating and very valuable. And work that we will be able to take into the future, knowing that we can use either one of those 2 methods to collect samples. Thank you. Who is up next?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My
Good
name's
evening. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. My name's Kiana Martinez, and I was working with the Environmental Health and Safety Division this summer. And so my whole project was sifting through some documents and coming up with our new standardized emergency action plan. So that's what I'll be talking to you guys about today. Next slide, please. Could we do that? Perfect. And then just a little bit quickly about me. My name's Kiana, as I said, and I attended the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And I actually just graduated this past May, so that was very exciting. And I got a degree in environmental science with a specialty in policy law and planning. And on the right here, you can see a very nice simplified version of kind of what I've been working on this summer. And it's just talking a lot about emergency procedures for our workers and everyone who resides in our waste plant buildings, just to make sure that if anything ever happened, whether it was a fire or a chemical spill or a civil threat, that they'd be all set to go and they knew exactly what they needed to do. And the whole reason why I'm involved this summer is it was time to update all the documents, get all the plants the same information. And so, yeah, next slide, please. And so just talking a little bit more about what the emergency action plan is, it's kind of just a document that can range anywhere between 30 and 60 pages, depending on how thorough they want to go. And it's just, again, describing a lot of different protocols, emergencies, lots of emergency numbers, staff and personnel that you can go to in case of emergency. And in my project, there were about 14 sites that I looked at for the emergency action plans. And so really all I did is I went through and I combed, did a lot of reading, comparing of the documents, trying to figure out what regulations we need to have in place that correlated with OSHA, as well as kind of spicing things up and making sure that we go above and beyond OSHA standards to provide everything that our workers can need in a comfortable environment. So that's kind of the Met Council's twist on the document. And so that's kind of what I'm working on. And so currently right now with my project, we're getting pretty close to wrapping everything up. We have a standardized template in place, and we're gonna hopefully get that fully sent out this fall. So that's very exciting, and it's just really important to have this document in place. That way all the workers, whether we have traveling employees or maintenance workers going from plant to plant, that when they go to do a procedure, that it's consistent across all plants. Like I have my advisor, Matt, and he sees a plant a day. And so it's just really effective for all of our workers and employees. Next slide, please. And then just some takeaways. I got to read through a lot of documents and do some researching and lots of critical thinking around what different workers really need and their spaces and how to make the document as effective for them. And through that process, realizing that we had a lot of information in our emergency action plans that actually interfered a little bit with the effectiveness of getting our employees what they needed on a quick spot. And so that was really good to meet a lot of the workers in different positions and really see what that looks like firsthand. And then taking all that information and producing something that's really clear and concise for current workers and future workers. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Next slide, please. A little bit more about what we did this summer with the emergency action plan. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Martinez? Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kiana, for your work and your presentation. Just curious to know, I'm assuming most of your or all of your work was internal within Metropolitan Council versus interacting with other departments, such as the Department of Emergency Management, but just wanted to ask you that question. And then another question I had was just related to what, in terms of the plans that existed before, what were the most common changes across the board?
Yeah, to answer that last question really quickly, I think the most common thing I saw was that all the documents that I looked over were fairly different in their emergency action plan styles of how they presented the information. So some plans had font that was really, really small and like really bright, and they had like additional information, links to sites to like check things that they wouldn't necessarily need in emergencies. It was also pretty common that we didn't find really good clear evacuation route images to like have visuals to like direct employees where to go, where fire extinguishers were, for an example, or good muster routes, and like having that always clearly laid out wasn't something that was consistent. And just, yeah, making sure that there were certain emergency action plans that had, say for fire emergencies, for example, they would have 3 pages of information, but it wasn't necessarily organized in the most impactful way. Or with medical emergencies, technically employees aren't actually supposed to administer any care unless they have training. And so then we had a bunch of information there on how to administer medical care, which they actually necessarily shouldn't be doing, depending on their status and like level of training. And so just kind of taking out some of the confusing information to make sure that employees don't accidentally use information or don't have access to information that they would need. And could you remind me what your first question was, sir?
It was asking if all of your work was internal to the Met Council versus did you actually happen to interact with like the Department of Emergency Management or any other departments at the state level?
You know, it was more so internal. I've been working really closely with the environmental health and safety team, and they've been really fantastic with guiding me through the process. But outside of that, it's mostly been internal because we do have, I think, everything we need to be successful. I just think it's more so on how we're presenting it across each plant and to just the councils, I guess all the council's plants as a whole. And so kind of just simplifying down everything, taking out some of the clutter. And so, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? The fact of the matter is, unfortunately, we have had fires at our plants before, and we deal with floods pretty regularly, you know, especially because of where they're located, right, right by our 3 major rivers for the most part. So having really standardized emergency management materials makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm certainly glad that we're going above and beyond, as you said, what OSHA is calling for. That's good to hear. So thank you for your really great work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here today.
All right, and congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you.
Man, that's exciting.
It is a celebration indeed.
Yes, you're off to good things.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks again. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Jack Acom, and I'm presenting on my underground structure data creation project this afternoon. Next slide, please. So a little about myself before I get started here. I'm a student at McAllister College over in St. Paul, where I study geography and applied mathematics and statistics, and also urban studies. And this summer, I was the Geographic Information Systems intern with the ES GIS team. And like I said, my project was mapping underground structures. Next slide, please. So, mapping underground structures. What does that mean? Well, the goal for our team's project this summer was to establish the size and profile of all of the underground structures in the wastewater network within our GIS system. And when I'm talking about underground structures, what I mean is things sort of like you see in the graphic on the right. So things like meter vaults or lift stations or tunnels, basically anything in the wastewater network that's under the ground and isn't a pipe. And the motivation for this project was that within the wastewater network, these underground structures can be, a variety of different sizes and shapes depending on the usage. And if you're looking at them from the surface, it can be hard to tell how large they are or what their shape is like if you can only see from the surface. And currently the GIS system is able to tell you where these structures are, but it lacks the ability to visualize how large they are. And so my piece of this project was to work on those visualizations, to visualize the extent of these underground structures. Like I said, this is valuable if you're out in the field, if you're a field worker trying to understand where a particular structure lies, but it's also useful for services like Gopher State 1 call, which is the call before you dig service, to make sure that no one's hitting our structures if they're excavating. And it also just broadly expands the capabilities of our GIS system here at the council. Next slide, please. So with this project, the ESGIS team and I took a holistic approach to the data design process. We essentially took it from start to finish. So we started by designing a new database from scratch that would house these visualizations of the different underground structures within our GIS, and made sure that it would include not only the physical extent of the structures, but details like their depth under the ground, what type of structure they were, what other structures in our system they might be affiliated with, things like that. And once that database had been designed, it was up to me then to go through our databases and physically map these structures. So you can see an example of what that looks like on the right there. That's an image I pulled from the GIS system as it stands today, and that blue outline is the extent of a vault, a meter vault that lies under the ground and sort of extends out into the street in that funky barbell shape. You can understand why that might not be obvious to someone who's looking at that meter vault from the surface, and why these sort of visualizations might be valuable. As of today, there's around 70 underground structures of various types that I've imported into this new database, and I'm hoping to double that number by the end of the summer. Additionally, by the end of the summer, I'll have generated metadata, so the information will be explained and understandable to other folks, and ultimately the data will be published for council-wide use. So folks in the field and folks in the offices will be able to use this information for decision making and other operations. So hopefully it provides some utility. Next slide, please. That was sort of the 100-foot view of my project this summer. I'd happy to take any questions.
I can guarantee you this will provide some utility. This is super valuable. Thank you very much. Questions for Jack? Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you. Well, of course, I gotta speak up here. I'm 3 blocks from McAllister right now, but just wanted to say thank you for your work. So I don't, maybe I should know this, but do we know how many structures the Metropolitan Council has just across the region that could potentially be mapped? Is that the goal, or were you trying to basically kind of map a representative sort of sample of the structures that we have across the metro.
Through
Great
Chair,
question,
council
Jack.
members.
Yeah.
That is a good question. The answer is that this database is sort of a work in progress, and it was designed to be from the start. If we were to map every structure that the council owns across the region, that could be upwards of, maybe 1,000 structures all told, and that's a large long-term project. The goal of this summer was to get sort of the infrastructure in place to allow that continuing process to start, and to map some of the largest structures, sort of the high impact ones. A lot of structures are pretty similar, but it was important to the team and I that we get sort of the major and unique ones filed away in the summer. So that's what we've been focusing on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and just a follow-up comment. I mean, I just serving on this committee over the course of the last couple of years now. It's fascinating to me how much infrastructure is below grade, and the average person just has no idea and really doesn't think about it. And so and this is Met Council infrastructure, and then when you tack on, city and state infrastructure, just how it all connects and in the end, moves, whether it's moving wastewater or transportation systems, whatnot. Just fascinating. So thanks for your
There's
work.
a lot going on underground. And I mean, it's super important to have this information. Like, you thinking about the example that you gave about the meter vault running underneath that street. Well, that street's going to be rebuilt one of these years, and there's going to be a backhoe there, and they're going to want to know, or should know, that that vault is right there. And so I'm glad that we're going to be able to provide that information. And I know that this type of information, if we are at the point where we are doing some work on that vault, or I just, when you were presenting, Jack, I remember a project I was working on where this is several years ago. We were doing a city project, and we thought that the city pipe, a water pipe or whatever it was, wastewater pipe, was like 5 to 10 feet underground under the street, but it actually was 20 or to 30 feet below. And that just blew the cost estimates really out of the water, and changed the project pretty dramatically. So I, for one, I'm glad that we're really getting a solid understanding of where all of our underground structures are located, and what the depth is, and what the type is, and all of that good stuff. So thank you for your great work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Have a great afternoon.
You as well.
Welcome, Donovan.
Good afternoon / good evening. Sorry, I'm still trying to pull up my information real quick. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So my presentation will be on the Environmental Services Racial Equity Initiative. Next slide, please. So good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Donovan Taylor, and I've been serving as the Urban Scholar intern in the Workforce and Equity Department of Environmental Services. This fall, I'll be a senior at Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin, where I'm majoring in business management with a minor in psychology, and I anticipate to graduate in May 2022. I'm also a student athlete and will be participating in my 4th year on the men's basketball team. Next slide, please. So following the death of George Floyd, Environmental Services embarked on a journey to develop the first of its kind racial equity strategic plan that would be embedded within the framework of the overall divisional strategic plan. A group consisting of environmental services staff and regional admissions business partners met to develop the initial framework for this effort. What you see in this image is the result of the initial design efforts completed in August of 2020. The planning is focused on growth and learning and not assigning blame or shame to any one person or a group of individuals, and is a part of a journey to learn and discover the next best steps in pursuit of our divisional vision. The group realized the importance of bringing in outside consultants to partner with us who are knowledgeable in this subject matter. And since early 2021, behind the scenes pre-work has been done to pave the way for engaging all staff in the process. Next slide, please. The team has been following the Growth Consultant Strategic Visioning process as a part of its journey. This infinity diagram shows a multi-step process that actually helps us think intentionally about the initiative development. The team has been in step 2 for a little over a year, which is exploring and learning about where we have been and where we also desire to be. We will soon be progressing into step 3 in the coming months. Examples of the work I've been involved in include the overall planning of team meetings, writing a script for the general manager, Lisa Thompson, which will be recorded to be played at the start of the focus group sessions with our BIPOC staff, as well as the design work for focus groups. And I'm also looking forward to the possibility of facilitating one of the focus groups if given the opportunity. Also, as recently as last week, all staff within the division had an opportunity to learn about this journey through 2 separate briefing sessions and launched an employee survey to begin gathering information on the current state of our division. In addition, we are planning to engage stakeholders in a Diamond Inclusive Assessment, or a DIA, which will help us better understand where our strengths and opportunities really reside, as well as for consideration. We would greatly appreciate your involvement in this process. This is a long-term initiative that will not be completed overnight, rather will be ongoing and continue to evolve. Next slide, please. So an internal approach to DE&I, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is creating a workplace that is more diverse, inclusive, and where our employees have opportunities to grow in their careers. Also, through this DE&I work, we will not only reflect the region that we serve, but be able to make better informed decisions and include different voices and perspectives in the work that we actually do. MCES, next slide, please, sorry. MCES is working towards closing workforce gaps through our workforce planning, racial equity strategic planning, and most importantly, allocating its resources and time to ensure outcomes of these commitments that will be met. We also need to maintain a competitive advantage so that we can recruit and retain the most qualified candidates, as well as create an organization where people feel included and valued, as well as where we champion innovation and growth. Our employees actually help make us better connections with the community and improve the economic growth of our region. Studies consistently show, regardless of the industry, public or private, diversity in the workplace, especially not just in entry-level jobs, greatly improves the success and sustainability of the organization. Next slide, please. If you would like more information about the ES Racial Equity Initiative, we are relaunching our Equity Change team, as well as our initiative team, and would appreciate any opportunity to collaborate with any of you who are interested. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Questions for Donovan? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. The first one is, can we see the questions that were asked of the employees in the survey that you sent out? Is that something that
Yes.
could be emailed to us?
Yes, I can.
Great. And then the other question is there anything that you've come across in all of this that was different from what you expected to see?
I guess something that may have been different or I guess unexpected was just the I guess like the importance behind all this work, really pushing the envelope on the work that we have been doing. It's been different from work that I've done in the past, specifically from school. Really just trying to envelop a unification throughout the agency was really, I would say, like the biggest, I guess, difference, so to speak, if that makes any sense.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you asked for our involvement in the future. I'm sure I can speak for the committee in saying, yeah, absolutely. Love to help in any way we can with DEI and moving that forward, and for all the reasons that you articulated so well about removing barriers and encouraging opportunities and spurring innovation and growth in our department. So absolutely 110%.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fredson.
Interested to know how you learned of this internship, and I mean, if you grew up in northern Wisconsin versus the here in the cities or the metro.
Yeah, so I'm actually from South Minneapolis, and I actually heard about this Urban Scholars Institute kind of through word of mouth, actually. And I was just I just applied and just kind of seeing where the opportunity took me. And I'm great that it landed me here. And but yeah, anything else? But yeah, that's it.
We're fortunate that you heard about it and that you did this great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you as well.
Welcome, Maxwell Savage.
Mr. Chair, council members, good afternoon. My name is Maxwell Savage. I've worked for the last couple of months with Performance Excellence and Analytics as a business systems intern. Next slide, please. I am a returning MERP, as we call ourselves, Master of Urban and Regional Planning student at the Hubert H. Humphrey School of Public Affairs. I'll be starting my second and final year. And my internship really focused this summer on the creation of virtual twins and similar environments. Next slide, please. Walking a little bit deeper into virtual twins and similar, myself and Haley, who you'll hear from later this afternoon, we've done a lot of work together on this. We did a lot of research for a potential drone program that could be used to analyze topography, provide training videos. There was some discussion at one point of ground penetrating radar as further ways of analyzing existing infrastructure. We're also looking at Hololens, Microsoft Hololens training pilots for various aspects around the council, specifically using it to create guides and tutorials for occasional or new operators on various pieces of equipment, so that someone could actually wear a visor that provides them with a holographic walkthrough in the environment that enables really, really low stakes training experience and also an excellent and almost foolproof refresher for occasional operators. We also stepped into the Digester 1 at the Empire plant when that was down for maintenance over the last couple of weeks. We've got a couple of different scans of that. We've also scanned most of the Metro plant. We've done the compressor building, sludge thermal conditioning, solid sludge transfer, the administration building, maintenance and the maintenance and warehouse structure. And I have personally been pursuing the possibility of using this technology to analyze bus stops. After speaking to some interns in transit, I understand that most of that analysis happens through Google Maps. So if this exists within the council, it makes a lot of sense to me to try to bridge that divisional gap. And I am starting to look at standardizing format for EAPs across various plants, as Kiana was discussing earlier. Next slide, please. Personally, I have gained just a massive amount of understanding of the council itself, which as a MERP, I feel really, I'm really exceptionally grateful for beginning to understand the underlying mechanisms of a regional governing body like Met Council and the high-level wastewater treatment overview that I've gotten over the last couple of months. I've also gained a lot of proficiency with AR training tools, things that while I had worn a visor in the past, I have never interacted with the training program or the programming element of it. I've gotten a lot of experience with three-dimensional scanning cameras, the creation of virtual environments, and I have received actual training in structured documents using XML, ArborText, and similar. Next slide, please. And that's a really high overview of most of the things that I've attacked this summer. I would welcome any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you for the questions. I mean, one thing that came to mind for me is that this AR technology can be so helpful, or virtual technology can be so helpful in this COVID age that we live in, where you really don't want 10 people all jammed into a conference room, or 3 people in a enclosed truck or something like that. I think there's a lot of advantages to that. Questions or comments? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It sounds really cool. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see a video example of it in the presentation. Did you think about adding in something like that?
I considered it. I wasn't certain what the, excuse me, Mr. Chair, committee members. I was uncertain as to the level of depth of diagrams and photos that we should include in our slides. And had I to do it over again, I would most certainly incorporate some.
I know that using videos in PowerPoints always gives me the heebie-jeebies about whether or not it's actually going to work or not, but yeah, that's good.
Excuse me, we do have a number of the scans available on MetNet at this point.
I wasn't aware. Talk to me more about ground penetrating radar. What's that all about?
Mr. Chair, committee members, it is something of a tangential element that I found towards the end of the drone research project. But the premise, I believe, the use case that I found for it was specifically using a drone flying at a relatively low altitude with ground penetrating radar to map existing infrastructure below grade in I forget which city it was, but in an Indian city that had been there for hundreds or thousands of years and had layers and layers and layers of infrastructure. Just the premise of being able to precisely locate almost as a counterpoint to Jack's previous presentation about GIS locational, to be able to bring GPR unit out to a site and get an immediate read on what's underneath.
Fascinating. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate your work. Sounds great. And we love the Humphrey School, tell you that much. And there's a lot of good MERPs coming out of the Humphrey School. So keep it up.
Thanks much.
All right, who is next up? Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Leticia, and my presentation today is going to be on a process computer group firewall upgrade. Next slide, please. So I'll give a little bit of my background. I attended Minneapolis Community and Technical College, where I got my associate degree in computer support and network administration in 2017. Then I transferred to Metropolitan State University, where I got my bachelor degree in information assurance in last year, 2020, during the pandemic. So for my summer project, I worked I'm working in a group called the Process Computer Group, or PCG. So the project was about upgrading the firewall, which I will expand a little bit in detail in the next slide. But I'll give a little bit of background about PCG. PCG Group, actually, they manage the SCADA network, or industrial control network, for 9 wastewater treatment plants. So this project that I've been working on throughout this summer was actually the result of the business unit of last year, October last year. It was approved last year, and then I had the opportunity to work in this project for this summer. Next slide, please. So what is firewall? Firewall is I would say it's a combination of physical network equipment and the software that can be used to protect a private network. So it can be used to maintain the security of a private network. It can be used to block unauthorized access to and from the private network. So it's really securing the private network, which we don't have. We don't want it to be accessible to anybody. So, and I'll give a couple of reasons for this upgrade, literally for this project. The upgrade was because of all the firewall that was being using throughout all 9 wastewater treatment plants was old. It attended the end of life. It was really old, and then it needed to be changed. Because the device was so old, it can present some security issue to the network. We're trying to secure our private network, and if the device is not up to date, it can present some security issues. So, and then another reason was for the newest technology. Implementing with the newest technology, it will allow the group to have a more advanced security feature. It will allow us to secure the network better. So these 2 reasons, device end of life and the newest technology in the market, was really the 2 big reasons for this project. Next slide, please. So throughout this project, the goal was to upgrade. Upgrading means like just switching to the oldest devices to the newest devices without any interruption or downtime to the production control system. I would say this project was very critical because the equipment that we're trying to replace, we're trying to upgrade, was actually active, was online. We're trying to switch from the active system. So the firewall that we're trying to upgrade was working, and then was trying to perform their work. So while we're trying to switch, we need to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the production, production control system. We needed to be all the time, at least one active firewall in place. We couldn't just cut the old one and then put the newest one. We need to make sure that as we're trying to transfer from the old one to the newest one, the system is still active and then online, and then protecting the private network. So we did that on 9 wastewater treatment plants, and then we were able to replace 18 appliances, each 2 appliances per plant, which went pretty well. We pretty much completed the project. Now the next step we are working on currently is now, because we have a new technology, we have new devices, we're trying now to go back and then try to implement and then configure the advanced security feature that comes with the new technology. So this is the currently what we're working on. But as far as switching from the old device to the new devices, we completed it at all 9 plants, and then went pretty well. We didn't have any issue. Everything works as we attended it to, as it was attended to. So for my experience, practice, and what I really gained from this project, with summer project, is it was hands-on and the real world experience. I'm coming straight from school, and then I didn't have really much hands-on experience, and then I got this opportunity to work on this such critical project, which was really beneficial to me. And I would say I was trained for the first couple of weeks. I was trained, and then by the middle, I was able to perform the switchover. I was able to perform from the old with the supervision of my mentor. I was able to do the switch over from the old device to the new devices. So it was a really good experience for me to have a hands-on and then to learn more about networking in general. Next slide, please. So this concludes my presentation. I will be happy to take any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. When you were talking, I recalled a water plant. I think it was for potable water in Florida this spring. They had a hacker break into their system. You may be familiar with this, and really start monkeying with the chemicals used to treat the waters, and I think fortunately they caught it in time, but it just really is emphasized to me the importance of maintaining a really strong firewall. So very grateful for the work that you have done this summer. Other questions or comments from the committee? Councilmember
Yeah,
Fredson?
Mr. Chair, I thank you. I just say more and more, you know, the protecting our critical infrastructure from attacks, you know, whether it's other countries or folks here, you know, it's just really important work. And if you let the guard down just for a brief period of time, you know, the consequences could be really devastating. So thank you for your work, and hopefully you're taking away some lessons learned here that will, you know, if this is a career that you're interested in pursuing, advance that. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee member. I will have to agree, because securing the network is very critical. It's better to prevent than waiting for the you know, something to happen and then try to figure out what we should do. Well, you know, I'm very grateful. I have the opportunity to perform this project.
Wonderful. Keep up the good work. Keeping us
Yeah.
safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Welcome, Madison.
Hello.
Greeting.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Madison Bose. I am the technical writer intern for the Operations Support Services team here at Met Council. Next slide, please. I graduated this past May from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities with a Bachelor of Science in Technical Writing and Communication, and my summer internship project involved gathering information about various wastewater treatment plant processes and then authoring a document that plant or maintenance operators can use when they go back to that task or process to perform it correctly and safely. It's called writing a SOP, and I'll explain it a little bit better in the next slide, please. Thank you. So SOP is short for Standard Operating Procedure, and there are 3 steps to writing a SOP. The first of which is gathering information, and that usually means that we go out into the field, usually somewhere within one of our wastewater treatment plants, and we work with our subject matter experts or SMEs to gather information about a task or a process that they're performing and they want us to write documentation on. So these SMEs are usually, as I said, experienced plant or maintenance operators. Sometimes they can be tradespeople such as electricians, or if we purchased a piece of equipment from an outside vendor, sometimes we have the outside vendor come in and teach us about the piece of equipment so that we can pass that knowledge on to our operators so that they can operate it safely. The second part, after we've gathered all that information, is authoring. And we use a authoring tool, an XML-based authoring tool called ArborText. And I won't go too much into it, but once we're done with our first draft, we send it out for review to our subject matter experts. Since they are the experts, we want them to have the final say and look it over and say this is correct. Then we can finally publish it out to our facilities and operations library, which is that screenshot you see on the screen there. That is what our operators would see if they went into that library online and they were searching for a task or a process at their plant that they wanted to have a job aid on as they're performing the task. They pull the job aid up and then they have it so that they can perform the task safely. And then also we have been incorporating video into our SOPs this summer, working on that as that is how kind of the direction that the industry is moving overall towards video. So we've been incorporating them into our SOPs. Next slide, please. So lately I've been working on a bigger project, which is updating the guidelines on how to write and publish SOPs following the specific process that we follow at Met Council Environmental Services. And I'm updating from this version here, which is kind of like an old paper copy that I have in a 3-ring binder, and it says 2018 on it. So it's hasn't been updated in a while. So I kind of combed through there and picked out the most essential information and put it into a new digital version. You see a few screenshots on the screen there from the digital version. And it's in its first draft form right now, getting comments and suggestions made from my team, and then I'm gonna take those comments and suggestions and make a final draft soon within the next week. So it's very exciting to have that guide. It's going to be used by program supervisors and other technical writers within the department. I'm working in the summer to help people who are just kind of learning the programs get a feel for how the authoring and publishing process works here at Met Council. So next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have right now. Otherwise, if you think of any later, you can always feel free to email me. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. And you seem like the perfect person to be writing an SOP with your experience at the U of M, getting your degree in technical writing. This matches that perfectly. Was there anything that surprised you between what you learned at the U of M and actually sitting down and typing out a brand new SOP?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lindstrom. That's a good question. I think the biggest adjustment coming into Met Council as a technical writer was learning that authoring tool that I talked about called ArborText, that XML-based authoring tool, since it does use DITA, which is a markup language, and it's just a little bit more of a learning curve for me. And before I could write that guide that I showed you, I had to really make sure I knew how to use that tool. So that was different from what I learned in school because we did not touch that ArborText tool. I've never touched it before I came here, but it was a really good experience to learn it. So I'm grateful for it.
Fantastic. Other questions or comments? Excellent job. Thank you so much, Madison.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And up next, we have Haley Ringhand. Welcome.
Good evening. So I'm Haley, and I was also a business systems analyst this summer in the Performance Excellence and Analytics group. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about myself. I go to the University of Minnesota Duluth, and I will be a sophomore there this fall, and I am studying chemical engineering. And today, my main project for this summer was 3D scanning, augmented reality, and virtual reality. Next slide, please. So the first thing I'm kind of going to talk about is just 3D scanning. You heard Max talk about it a little bit, but he didn't really go too in depth. So basically, the most common version of it that you see will be on Google Street View, where you see all the houses and you can click along the street. That is a virtual environment that was created with some version of 3D scanning. So how we complete this is we have two different cameras and you connect them to an app called Matterport on an iPad. And you kind of just go along in a room and you place the camera every couple of feet till you get full coverage of the room, and you just kind of, it will take a picture from 6 different positions in a 360-degree circle, and that's how it connects. And then it connects them all using AI in order to create a virtual environment online that you can look at. So you can kind of preview it on the iPad, and then from there you will upload it to the Matterport website, and on there you can actually view the final thing and like click through the whole entire building as if you were actually in the building. Another part of this that Max also talked about is our Microsoft Hololens, where you have the virtual environment laid on top of your real world. And this is a really cool experience. We've been using a program called Microsoft Guides, where you actually will write the program on the computer, and then you get to go in and you can place holograms. So if there's like a certain lever that you need to pull down in this certain step, or if there's a button that needs to be pushed, you can put a circle around it. So that's all really helpful stuff for training. The only stuff that we've used it for so far is a lockout tagout mockup, but in the future we hope to see more implements of this. These are both really useful environments for training. We've had some sludge storage scan that we did, and he also was very interested in the HoloLens, and it's just amazing to see how the future can go, especially for processes that are only done once or twice a year. Next slide, please. So mainly just what I got out of this internship. The main thing is workplace experience. I'm so really young in my schooling, and so being able to be in this environment every day and working on many different projects at the same time and communicating across many different teams for whatever may be needed, and just having all these different experiences from such a young age is really helpful and definitely helps me to work harder towards my future as I see like this is what I'll be doing in about 3 years. Along with that, educational opportunities, seeing the wastewater treatment plant. When I first came to this job on my first day, I had no idea how they operated. And then about the second week, we got a tour of the plant, and it was a lot of information. So you kind of figured it out, but you're still kind of iffy. And then we ended up 3D scanning basically every building at the Metro plant. So we'd kind of walk in and be like, oh, this is what happens in this building, and see whatever process is happening there. And that's really been helpful just for me to see and be like, maybe this is something that I want to do in my future, because now I have a way better understanding of it. Along with that, just working with the emerging technologies, this AR, 3D scanning, VR, they're all very new and upcoming, and it's crazy the things that we can do with them. And even though we might not see them actually like implemented every day for many more years, it's really cool technology to work with. Next slide, please. That's what I did this summer. I'm open for any questions now, or you can always email me.
If it's any consolation, Haley, I also had no idea what happened in the wastewater treatment plants when I started my gig here at the Met Council. So we're all learning all the time. Questions or comments for Haley? Was there much of a learning curve for you? Like a lot of the interns, their degrees kind of match up with what they're working on, and you're a chemical engineering degree, and you're working on a lot of VR and AR and 3D scanning, and maybe there's correlations there, but it's not apparent to me. Was it tough, or was it kind of second nature for you to understand how this all works?
Yeah, Chair Lindstrom. I've just kind of always grown up with a dad and brother that have been really tech savvy. So I've always kind of like, before you buy a computer, you research into every little bit of that computer. So I feel like with engineering, you already get the technology. Like I've known how to code for like quite some years now. And so like that's kind of been with the technology thing, and that helped when we worked with ArborText. And I've just always really been into technology, so it wasn't too much of a learning curve. Like I've worked with VR headsets before just because we have them in my house and such. So I mean, there's not really a direct correlation with the chemical engineering aspect, but just engineering overall has a lot of technology involved, and growing up in a generation where technology has always been relevant has been helpful.
No question about it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other questions for Haley? Excellent. Well done. Appreciate it. Thanks for your great work. And next up, we have Amber Orr. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Lindstrom and committee members. My name is Amber Orr, and I had the honor of working with the Industrial Waste and Pollution Prevention Division as the engineering intern this summer. Today, I will be telling you a little bit about my summer project in regard to microbreweries and their self-reporting process. If you could advance to the next slide, please, I'll just tell you a little bit about my personal background. At the conclusion of this internship opportunity, I will be heading back down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida to finish my undergraduate degree at Nova Southeastern University, where I am pursuing an environmental science and marine biology bachelor's degree, as well as a post-baccalaureate certificate in paralegal studies. This summer, I got to learn about a variety of industrial wastes across the wastewater industry with a specific focus on the microbrewery program, as I mentioned before. And the next slide, please. I can jump into my project, which involved researching current industry wastewater standards and then compiling and reviewing historical microbrewery data that is submitted to environmental services through the annual self-monitoring reports from each of the individual permitted microbreweries. These findings were then used to identify opportunities for improvement to the microbrewery general permit program for both the benefit of the microbrewery customers and the Metropolitan Council. These facilities are permitted due to the potential for high strength or high volume wastewater discharges from that brewing process that may negatively impact the local wastewater treatment plants. And even though that water is treated at the plants prior to discharge into our local surface waters, it's really important that that pollution be prevented before it becomes a problem. And so for this project, the two main research focuses included the reported industrial waste volumes as measured by industrial wastewater to beer production as a ratio, as well as deductions that are currently being claimed by the facilities for water loss, such as spent grain or evaporation. And the next slide, please. And then just as a really broad overview, all of that information was put into a very large tracking document that was utilized to compare volumes facility to facility as well as year to year to identify inconsistencies in that reporting process. It also served the purpose of categorizing the facilities as below, within, or above the industry wastewater standards. And we used that categorization as an insight to create resources for the microbrewery customers. This included a letter to the permittees that informed them with just a friendly notice whether they were within or above those industry standards, as well as identified resources within the self-monitoring process. So that includes a video that we hope to have published pretty soon that walks them through the reporting process and how they can determine volumes. And just because a list of volume reporting inaccuracies were identified during this process, it was determined that it would be helpful to create instructions sheets that explain exactly how they can determine those volumes. And this was just an additional resource to further assist in that SMR process. All right, and then the final slide, please. This internship had a lot of value to me in taking my broad water knowledge and applying it to a specific industry, as well as allowing me the opportunity to interact with and learn from professionals in the field. So I just want to thank everyone here today for your time this evening and for your support of our intern projects. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time about my summer project or the internship.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Orr?
Yes, Chair Lindstrom, this is Representative Sterner or Councilmember Sterner. And I just was wondering with the breweries, did you work with just a sample of a few breweries or just data behind there, or were you like sampling all the breweries in our 7-county area?
That is a great question, Councilmember Sterner. The tracking document featured 64 different facilities that are currently permitted. There are more across the state, but we focused on the 7-county area.
All right, thank you. And just one follow-up question. You're going back to Florida, but there's not going to be that many breweries down there. You're going to have like really miss being around the breweries and the data up
Especially in
here.
Fort Lauderdale, I hear there's not really much going on down there.
You know
Okay.
what? It was an interesting perspective. I did a lot of my work remote and utilizing some technology, such as videos, to kind of learn the brewing process. So I didn't get to go to a lot of the brewery facilities as much as some of the other industries that I got to visit. So yes and no.
It is an emerging field, and like you articulated so
you.
well, it's so much better to take care of that industrial waste, you know, at the source as much as you possibly can before it hits the plant. And so thank you for your great work, Councilmember Fredson.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to ask, were you at this long enough to actually see some brewers respond to your work and see them make progress, or do you feel like that's what's going to come as a result of this work?
That's a great question. We're hoping that the results of this project will continue well into this program from year to year. That tracking document can be expanded to include more than our 3-year span that we did take a look at, and then just continuing to educate both on Metropolitan Council resources and then other industry resources to hopefully see a continuous decline in reporting inaccuracies.
And remind me on some of those deductions that you were talking about. You mentioned evaporation, and then there was maybe one other. Talk to me a little bit more about ways, other sorts of deductions.
Sure, I can gladly do that. In the reporting process, they have to balance out the water that's incoming from their city or wells with the waters that's used in the production process. And some of that water is lost to evaporation, depending on the kettle size, heat, brewing time, or in spent grain. So when they soak that malt and different grains, some water is lost. And so just to balance out those numbers, they are able to claim water deductions for a variety of things.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. That's really important work, and we're grateful for your great work.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Schofield. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. Next slide, please. So I grew up in South Minneapolis. My name is Will, and I attend the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm entering my final year of studies in a 5-year biosystems engineering program with a specialization in environmental engineering, and I'm interested generally in sustainability and climate change, and I think water treatment and water remediation fits into that. So my project this summer has been to reduce waste production, to reduce solids production at the Rogers wastewater treatment plant. The site is going to be decommissioned in 2030 and replaced by an adjacent wastewater treatment plant that will be under construction shortly. So regional service will be transferred to that new plant. And the Rogers wastewater treatment plant in particular contains an on-site waste or sludge storage pond that has a history of being overloaded, and removing some of that waste via mechanical dredging can be very expensive when it reaches its design capacity. So it's important then, and this has been a significant portion of my summer project is eliminating at the source by optimizing plant processes and secondary elimination. Essentially reducing some of the waste volume in situ and finding other means of reducing both waste production and in situ reduction. So to do that, I had to understand mass transfers and understand where some of the waste is being generated in the process, and then reduce accordingly. So next slide, please. So a significant portion of determining what will happen if I change certain parameters in the wastewater treatment plant process is using industry-specific modeling software, and that's what I've been using is a software program called BioWin. So I started by constructing a site model using my knowledge of the plant layout and flows in the plant and various process metrics, and then calibrating influent flow metrics to observed effluent and mid-process data, so that the output of the simulation and what happens when I run simulations is an actual or is a somewhat accurate reflection of what would actually happen if those same parameters were changed in real time. So part of that process is just first of all, identifying parameters that can be changed, and then adjusting those parameters in concert in isolation, and determining if there are relationships to them and whether or not they're independent, because a lot of the variables in wastewater treatment plants are confounding. They're not dependent. And then performing regression on data sets where that's applicable. And once I have all of that, then I can optimize in the model for solids reduction, and then thereby reduce waste flow to the on-site storage pond or lagoon. So to do that, I need boundary conditions. So what are operators and managers comfortable with? What are the permit limits? What have third parties, such as consultants, determined are acceptable values for various parameters and limits for those parameters? And then using relationships from the model to predict optimal values. And once I've done all of that, then experiments can be designed to determine whether or not the model predictions are correct, and whether or not the waste reductions that I predicted are correct. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, there it is. Okay, so that involved two optimization experiments. The first one is adjusting chemical input only. So ferric chloride is a industrial chemical that's used to remove phosphorus at many wastewater treatment plants, and it forms a precipitate or a solid product. So the more chemicals added, the more sludge production there is, and that was adjusting that or optimizing for that was the first experiment. Data collection for that is finished and will be included in my final report at the end of the summer. And then the second experiment is adjusting more process parameters. There's actually one more parameter that was added to that experiment too, and that is putting clarifiers, which are wastewater treatment plant components, in parallel as opposed to in series, and seeing what happens when we do that, and hopefully improving the capacity of the plant. So the data collection from that is pending. There have been some unforeseeable site problems recently, but that's going to be that experiment's starting later this week, and possibly next week, depending on when the site-specific problems are solved. And then I mentioned secondary solutions. One of those is bioaugmentation. So just using a pre-established like microbe cocktail, essentially, to do a lot of the in situ digestion on site, and designing an experiment to determine whether or not that would be efficacious to an actual treatment regime, which can be costly relative to just a bench scale test. And then I guess a secondary assignment that I had was developing a flow tool from an experiment that I designed and performed to determine unknown flows, essentially, from the clarifiers, which are the two components that I just referenced. Understanding what will happen when the valves on those are adjusted to a certain extent, and what flows and what solids content, et cetera, we expect to result from those flow changes. So yeah, I made a flow tool fitting curved data, and then combined that with theoretical fluid mechanics that I've learned via my degree. So next slide, please. So that has been, that's my presentation. That's what I've been doing this summer, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you very much, Will.
Thank you very much, Will. No worries.
Questions? I'm glad that you were actually able to run experiments to see if the models actually, are doing what they said
That's
they
right.
would be doing. And doing these real world experiments, you learn that sometimes unforeseeable things do happen with the site
Absolutely.
or what happened or what have you. And so that's all part of the learning process as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's been one of the most valuable parts of the learning process this summer, actually, is just um, kind of encountering obstacles and encountering some adversity through like the unforeseen things that have come up and working around that, because that's a really a key part of being an engineer in most fields.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Any other questions? Thank you, Will. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a good evening.
You too.
I appreciate it.
Is that the last of the presenters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that was the final presenter.
Well, I have a special request if you're all still with us. Typically at this time, we all gather around and we're all in one big room and we gather around and take a picture. And so I'm hoping we can get a screenshot if folks could turn on their camera and we'll get a snapshot of all of us smiling away. I don't know who's actually going to be taking the picture. If that's you, Susan. All right. Susan's at the ready.
I'm at the ready. So I'm going to
We'll
do
give it a
quick
minute
screen
here.
share. Yep, so if everybody could turn their cameras on. Big smiles, we're waiting for just a few more. Waiting for everybody. So everybody that is on this call, please turn your videos on. Got a few more, David, Stephen, and Mehdi. If you could turn your videos on.
It's possible they just stepped away.
They may have stepped away, so I'm going to go ahead, going once, going twice. I'm going to do a screen grab. Thank you, everyone. Just like that, we're done.
Just
So
like that.
back to you, Chair.
All right. That is a wrap. Well, thanks again to you all. I know that you benefited through this experience, but for sure the entire Met Council benefited and our region benefited as a result. So I'm counting on you to finish your studies if you still have some to go, and keep your eyes peeled to that Met Council job board, would you? We need really smart people to be working for our organization, and clearly demonstrated that you're the cream of the crop here. So wonderful. And that takes us to Councilmember Fredson.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say this was one of my favorite presentations back when we were meeting in person, and now I think for 2 years in a row we've been getting this presentation virtually. But just so much talent out there, and just really impressed by all of the presentations. And also wanted to say to Lisa and others, I mean, just obviously a lot of thought went into the selection of the projects, and then obviously the interns that you brought on, but reflects well on the organization and just good work overall. So thanks.
Agreed with that. And so kudos to Sudi, if you're still on. Great job, and the team that you have working around you. And I think that takes us to Lisa.
I'll just bring us home with a lot of great things have already been acknowledged about the great work the interns have done, and we really appreciate it. Plus, it's always so interesting to see what different perspectives they help us see. But I really want to extend a big thank you to staff for the support and the time and talent that they shared with these interns, because it does take some planning, and it takes the ongoing support to make sure that time slips away real quickly, and so you can't delay when you have a new intern. You need to get started right away, or before you know that you've lost your good opportunity to cover more ground. So really big thanks to our staff for helping make this program successful year after year, and we hope that these interns are not only thinking about coming back to work for ES, but they might be telling their classmates, there's a cool place to work here, and it's called Environmental Services. And your support is part of making that happen. So thank you all, too, council members. And that's what I've got for today. I figured we'd keep it on the light side since we didn't have any business to transact, but this is important too.
Indeed. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks.